Get going here. I think we're live. All right, guys, give me a second here. I'm just setting up a few things. I want to be able to show you guys the logo. Red and yellow cards. Nice random German guy. I like it. So, who's playing today in the Euros? I haven't even paid attention to who's playing right now. Um, I got home from church and spent a little time with my kids and then got ready for this. So, let's just give me a second. I gotta set up the thing here so I can show you guys the logo. We'll announce that and get that out of the way real quick before we do anything else. All right, so first and foremost, oh, I don't have the chat open anymore, do I? I got the wrong thing showing here. There we go. So, 2 games at 6 finished. Checking out the chat here. Italy against Wales. Come on, Wales. Do your thing, Wales. And Switzerland and Turkey. Turkey has not had a good Euros from what I could see. Italy and Wales move on. Turkey is out. Excellent. Today is Sunday. Phoenix, Arizona checking in. Awesome. So I want to say congratulations to Adam Rickman and Chappie. Thank you. Appreciate that. And happy Father's Day to everybody who is a father. Congratulations and happy Father's Day for you. But yeah, I want to congratulate Adam Rickman, who had the winning design for our new logo for the channel. Many of you voted. We had over 1,000 votes both times that we did it, and Adam's design was the one that won both of those votes overwhelmingly. So I put a link in the description of the video. You might have to refresh because I just added it to the new merch that we've just created with the new logo. I've got a few things up there. They're available in multiple colors and things like that. But let me go ahead and turn on the screen for a second so I can show you guys the different designs of the new logo, which I will be updating on the channel here very soon. So give me a second. I've got to move the display capture so that it will show up. There we go. And let me show you. So this is going to be the official logo on the channel. Oh, you guys can't see it. Hold on. I got to drag it over here. There we go. So there's the new logo that will be the official profile picture for the channel. Pretty cool design. I think a lot of you guys voted for that one. It's got the little play button right there. And there's a lot of different versions of it that you're going to see on merch and things like that. Here's one of them that you'll see on a lot of the merch. And then there's also a white only version and a black only version of it. So he sent me all these different versions when he designed it. So that was really cool. So thank you to Adam Rickman for the winning design. Adam gets $100 for that. And I want to thank everybody who submitted designs because we got a lot of really good designs and a lot of them that I would gladly have gone with for the channel. And I may reach out to some of the folks who submitted designs because I may want to use your designs for merch, and I will definitely, give you a commission for your designs if we choose to use any of those for merch. So Adam, nice job, thank you. I actually reached out to Adam yesterday to let him know that he had won. So I'm grateful for him. He actually also sent me a little video version of it, like a splash that we can use on videos and things like that. I'm going to figure out how to incorporate that into things. So just got another patron. Awesome, Miss Love. Thank you. Appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about today's plans for the stream. A lot of you were asking about me sharing some of the books. I have about 400 books in my personal library that collecting all the way back to when I was in middle school. Some of the books you're going to see actually go back to when I was probably 12, 13 years old. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite books from my personal collection, as well as some of my favorite books that I've read recently. And then just kind of talk a little bit about why I like those books. The only thing I'm going to ask you guys, and I pinned this comment, is If you post comments and or questions for me that aren't related to what we're talking about, I'll just very politely just ignore those. So, if you're asking me my opinion about a historic event or a person, things like that, and it doesn't have to do with what we're talking about, I won't answer it. I want to try and keep this stream focused. We will definitely do more Q&A and meme streams where you can just kind of do all the random questions and things like that. But so no history memes today, no. So let me share with you. First, I'm going to share with you one that is not a history book. This is one of my few fiction books in my collection. I have very few fiction books. And actually, a while ago, I lost the cover of the book, so I'm going to show it to you on the side. Lord of the Rings. After the movie series came out, I took it upon myself to read all 1,000+ pages with really small type that is The Lord of the Rings. So I read that. So that's one of my few fiction books that I have in my collection. The Web, thank you, from Colombia. That's very cool. What drove my love of reading and books? I've always loved reading. I was just barely 3 years old when I learned to read. I might have even been 2 years and 10 months or something like that when I first started learning to read. By the time I was 3, I could read pretty much everything. And some of my earliest memories are of my mom taking me at like 5 years old out to eat and reading the newspaper to the servers because they couldn't believe that this 5-year-old kid could read the newspaper, front to back. And so I've been able to read since I was 3, read pretty well since I was 3. And so I have always loved reading. It was something that was instilled in me from childhood. And history came about, and I've talked a little bit about this before. When I was 8 years old, they found the Titanic. And that fascinated me, and I started reading all about the Titanic, and that kind of became the beginning of my lifelong love of not only of reading about history, but also about studying a ton about something that I found interesting. Vaclav, thank you so much. Appreciate that. You expected it to be Lord of the Rings. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Who's my favorite Lord of the Rings character? Oh, good question. I gotta say, it's gotta be Gandalf for me. Gandalf's really cool. I like Gandalf a lot. Other than him, I think maybe Sam. I don't know. 3 first names. Thank you. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Justin, America. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. What was my first history book? It was actually a book about the Titanic that I don't have anymore. And I tried to find it, and I apparently don't have it anymore. So, Saruman. Oh, interesting. Sam. Yeah, Sam. And I think Tolkien actually said that really Sam was the main character of Lord of the Rings. I think I remember reading that somewhere. Simo, thank you so much. Simo Haya approves of this channel. Thank you. Okay, so one of the older Civil War books that I have, and you'll see that a lot of my collection is based on the American Civil War, which is one of my favorite topics. But Bruce Catton's series. Bruce Catton's a fantastic writer. If you want to get into the Civil War in depth and you want to know that it's good material and well written, Bruce Catton's your guy. This is an old paperback version of Bruce Catton's Never Call Retreat that I have. Let me see how old this book is. This one, I have my contacts in, so it's actually kind of hard for me to read anything. This is from 1965, this Bruce Catton, this copy of Bruce Catton's Never Call Retreat that I have. So it's quite a bit older than I am. I don't have any Hungarian history books. I wish I did. A good American Revolution book, yes. And I'm going to get to some of those, Abdullah, when I get to sharing with you some of my audio books that I have. So by the way, if you want a good energy drink it's not one of those ones that's sweet and sugary, and you can see some of the greens not showing up because of my green screen. JD from History Underground put me onto these. They're actually really good, and they've got a lot of vitamins and things in them. All right, I have not read von Clausewitz's book. I don't have any books about Desmond Doss. So let me give you, here's an obvious one about World War II that even if you've seen the TV series, I highly recommend. Stephen Ambrose's Band of Brothers. Stephen Ambrose has got some good stuff. I will say this about Stephen Ambrose. Occasionally, Stephen Ambrose gets some stuff wrong. Not big stuff, not well-known stuff. I mean like little things. And the reason being that sometimes Stephen Ambrose, he does a ton of interviews with people. Multi-Arch, thank you so much. Appreciate that. I'm going to get to your question in just a second. Stephen Ambrose sometimes takes the word of the people he interviews without really checking it. So that's how you end up with things like in Band of Brothers, where he reported that Albert Blythe died in 1948 when he actually died in 1967, because people told him that and he just took their word for it. So occasionally in his interviews he kind of takes the word of people and things like that. So, but with the big stuff he gets it right, and he's a great author. Multi-Arch, historical fiction, yes, and I've actually got some historical fiction that we're going to get to in my audiobooks, so that'll be coming. Specifically Jeff Shara, who writes a lot of historical fiction. Quackers, you met Bill Garnier. That is very cool. You got to pull your chance and ask if I ever read. I have not read Mein Kampf, and I don't really plan to. I kind of have a pretty good understanding of what it's about. I started getting interested in history, Oliver, when the Titanic was found in 1985. That was really kind of what got me into it. Okay, so there's a cool story with this book, speaking of the Civil War. I am excited for Masters of the Air, especially because my wife's grandfather was on a B-17 crew in the 8th Air Force. So this book about Chancellorsville by Ernest Ferguson was actually given to me by my high school principal. He loved history, and he knew how much it was widely known in my high school how much I loved history, because my high school history teacher would let me teach the class sometimes, especially when we were talking about the American Civil War. So everybody in our school, I went to a small high school, 350 students in grades 9 through 12, had 88 in my graduating class. So my high school principal gave this book to me as a gift my senior year, and it's one of my favorite books that I've ever read on the Battle of Chancellorsville. So, Mr. Pavlon, thank you. I appreciate that. What historical book have I read the most books about? Definitely the American Civil War, followed by World War II, would be the ones I read the most about. All right. Let me share with you, if you want to go back a little bit further in time, I'm a big fan of Dan Jones. He has a lot of great documentaries. You can find them on YouTube or on Netflix. He does Britain's Great Castles on Netflix. He does some great series on you can find on YouTube about the Plantagenets and the Wars of the Roses. So this is Dan Jones's book about the Wars of the Roses. It's my favorite book that I've read about the Wars of the Roses. Alison Weir has a good book about the Wars of the Roses as well. But Dan Jones, I'm a big fan of his work. And I'm a big fan of his style of presenting in his documentaries and videos as well. I do have a World War I book I'm going to recommend pretty soon here when we get to my audio books. I have not read The Art of War. And one more from Dan Jones that I'll recommend if you're into that time period, and that's The Plantagenets. Also really, really good book. And being a descendant of the Plantagenets, I found that particularly interesting. But if you're into medieval history at all, definitely check this one out. Trev, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Glad you're a part of the community. What is my current favorite book? Ron Chernow's biography of Grant is my favorite one that I've read in the last couple of years. And I'm going to get to that one when I get to my audiobooks as well. Lorsica, thank you. Appreciate that. The oldest book I have in my library is probably... I actually have it's not really a book. I guess it is a book. We have my wife's family Bible from 1812. It's the Swank family, which came from Germany to eastern Pennsylvania to northeastern Ohio. And the earliest date written in it is my wife's great-great-great-great-grandfather's birthday in 1812, the year that the Bible was published. So that's the oldest book we have in our house. Best non-history book, probably Lord of the Rings that I shared. I have not read the Quran, though as a pastor, very familiar with the Bible. So yeah, I've read that lots of times. Let me share one with you that you probably would not have heard of, but is actually going to come in handy for me. I'm planning to go back to Gettysburg sometime later this year, and that's going to be one of those trips I'm going to open up to you guys. I'm going to do that as kind of I'm going to be your tour guide, and we're going to tour the Gettysburg battlefield. I'm going to invite anybody who wants to come and tour the battlefield with me. And I'm actually going to use this for some of the videos I'm going to make. I love little books like this. This one's called On the Bloodstained Field 2. It's by Greg Coco. And these are little human interest stories from the Battle of Gettysburg. So rather than kind of talking about the battle, they're talking about individual stories about men from the battle. And some of them are really short. They're just like a paragraph. So I'll read one example to you of that. Multi-Arch, thank you. Can I make a physical list of recommendations? Yes. I'm actually going to put together like an Amazon list of those recommendations. I'm going to try to do that later today, and I'll post that. So if you guys sign up for notifications on YouTube, I'll post that as like a community post, a link to my recommendation. So I'll definitely do that. So just an example, it says Captain Dudley Chase, 17th U.S. Infantry, relayed the following, which took place in the late afternoon of July 2nd, as his brigade made an attack westward from the northern face of Little Round Top. Brent and DC Bueno, thank you, and I'm going to get to your questions in just a second. It says, a lieutenant temporarily attached to my company astonished me as we were going down the slope, silent and grim, by leaving his place in line and running along the rear of the company, yelling, "Give 'em hell, men, give 'em hell." Twice I ordered him to stop, telling him I was in command and to keep quiet. When we made the run across the marsh, this lieutenant was particularly vociferous, swinging his sword, and in the center of the marsh he fell and was covered in mud. His sword scabbard had gotten between his legs and tripped him. All who saw his misadventure laughed. So that's the kind of little stories from the Battle of Gettysburg that this book shares. So I just like little stories like that. And I'm going to try to use that and make some videos about lesser known stories for you guys in that. So Brent, have I read Lost to the West? Amazing book about the often not talked about Byzantines and the critical role they played for Europe. No, but I'm very curious to check that out because I want to get into some more kind of ancient and early European history. So that's definitely something I'll check out. And DC Bueno, favorite era or type of warfare is in line formation? Yeah, Napoleonic War and American Civil War. So like 19th century warfare, probably my favorite era to talk about. I have been to the Wentz farm, Phil. I don't know Lieutenant Wentz's story, but yeah, that's something we could definitely do. And Red Crown, thank you for joining up as a member. Appreciate that. Another kind of lesser known, I like to get into lesser known stories. This is one I really enjoyed. This is Jack May's War by Robert Perry. It's about the 13th Kentucky Cavalry Confederate. And the reason I got this book, and it's actually a really long book, it's like 225 pages. I had 3 ancestors who served in that 13th Kentucky Cavalry unit during the American Civil War. So I got that book so I could learn more about that unit's story. Would I encounter trouble if reacting to a documentary on YouTube? It depends. It depends on the documentary. And the only way I would know for sure would be to learn and to try. Some are copyrighted. Some they don't care so much. I have not read any books on political theory, no. Would I ever write a Civil War story? Yes, not fictional, but I am in the beginning stages of doing some research in writing a book about the Ohio soldiers in the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. I've started doing a little digging, starting to gather some resources, some information. That's probably a couple years down the road, but I am planning to write a book about the Ohio soldiers because 54th Massachusetts was really a national regiment, even though it was a state regiment. It had men from all over the place. And 3 first names, thank you for signing up. Appreciate that. When I was a teenager, I was raised by my grandparents. So for those of you who don't know that, I was raised by my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. I've actually never met my father. He lives locally. I found out who he was from an ancestry DNA test. But my grandparents always embraced my love of history. They would take me to battlefields. They bought me books and documentaries and things like that. Charles, thank you, and I'll get to your question in just a second. But they bought me Time Life did one of those like things they advertised on TV, the Time Life series, and they bought me this whole Time Life series on the Civil War, and I've got the whole collection. And this is one of them, The Road to Shiloh. They're really well done and well presented. And as a teenager, wanting something that's got a lot of like, you know, maps and pictures and things like that, this was one of the series that really fed my love for history from an early age. And I've got that whole collection down on my bookshelf. Oh, my books are starting to fall because I'm not stacking them very well. So, whoops. Have I read any of G.A. Henty's historical fiction books? I have not, but I'll have to check those out. M1 Abrams, you have that book too. Cool. Mubarak, good to see you in the chat as well. Any books relating to the history of migrant waves in America? No, but that's something I should look into more. How do you do research for such things that might be obscure? Well, Civil War records are actually very accessible, and they're not all that obscure. And I've got a lot of different resources that I use for researching Civil War records. And a lot of the National Archives info is online now on a website called fold3.com. But the National Archives is probably a place I will go because they have all the military records as well as all the pension files. So I can pull the pension files, and that'll give a ton of biographical information about those soldiers if they filed for a pension. So that'll be a great resource for me in doing research on the books. Zach, what's up? All right, let's take a look. What else do I have here? Oh, this one's kind of cool, and this one's a little off the wall, and it shows you a little bit. I have one of the quirky interests that I have as a historian. I'm really fascinated by death and about things like exhumations and burials. I find fascinating the stories, for example, of historical figures who have been exhumed over time. So, for example, if you really want to, Google John Paul Jones' body, and you can see an image of John Paul Jones's body because they exhumed him a while back. And he was like soaked in alcohol, and so he's kind of mummified, and he's got all his long hair still, and those kinds of things. I don't know why I'm fascinated by that, but I am. But this was a book that I got years ago. It was like on a clearance from a library. It's called The Grim Reaper's Book of Days. And for every day of the year, it has stories about people who died that day. Sometimes famous people, and sometimes not famous people who died in an infamous way. So, for example, July 15th, it says 1881, Fort Sumner, Mexico, and it's got the story of how Billy the Kid was likely killed. Some of them are things like a guy was shaking a vending machine because it didn't give him his pop, and it fell over on him and killed him, and so there's a story about that. So, you know, things like that. I have read All Quiet on the Western Front. It was a long time ago. No, I haven't read the Communist Manifesto. Don't really plan to either. Have I read any books on the Holocaust, gulags, or massacres committed in Europe? No. I've read books that talk about those things in the context of the Greater War, but not specific to those. And no, I haven't done a specific... I've been to the battlefield at Monocacy in Maryland, but I haven't done a specific study on that. Okay, a couple more books I want to show, and then I want to show you guys some of my audiobook collection that I've been reading. This is one of my all-time favorite books, and this is why I know ridiculous amounts of information about the Battle of Gettysburg, in addition to my like 15 or so trips that I've taken there. Gettysburg... The Second Day by Harry Fance, and I think he's got one of these about each of the 3 days, but this one's my favorite. This is a just ridiculously documented 500 plus page book just about one day of the Battle of Gettysburg, and it's got just an exhaustive amount of research about the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg. So it's really cool. Anything from Osprey. Funny, I thought I brought one of my Osprey books up. I grabbed one. It was about the Battle of Gettysburg, but I think because I had a bunch of other Civil War books already, I left that one down there. But I do have some Osprey books. I collected those when I was really into miniature wargaming. So I would buy a lot of Osprey books at those wargaming conventions. I've not read any of Bernard Cornwell's novels, but I love The Last Kingdom, which I believe is his series. I have read Anne Frank's diary. The Guns of August, I have not. But isn't that, is that Harry Turtledove? And I meant to bring one of my Harry Turtledove books up, and I guess I didn't either. Nathan, thank you. Yeah, we hit 150K last night. All right, let me get to my last couple of books, and then if you guys have questions about other books that I've read. This one's really cool. This one's called The Civil War Source Book, A Traveler's Guide. And this is basically, it tells you about all of the sites in the United States connected to the Civil War that you could visit of interest. And they're sorted by state. So, you know, like I'm going to Maine. And I could look up Maine, and it'll tell me about... let me go to that. Let me just find that real quick here. Let me give you a different one. Ohio 228. So since I live in Ohio, I'll do Ohio. So Ohio, it talks about, so it doesn't have much about it, but like right here it talks about Sherman's house, the Sherman's House Museum, and it gives you the address, it gives you a phone number, it tells you, hours about it and things like that. I'm going to be visiting Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain's house in Maine here in a couple of weeks, so I'll be making a video about that, guys, for you. But things like that. So that one's really cool, just as a travel guide, just things you might not think about when you go to New York. You don't think about things associated with the Civil War that you might visit, but there's a lot of cool resources for that. This is another one that's really cool, and it goes back to my love of my interest in death and graves and things like that. And I have this personal goal of visiting the graves of every United States president, and I've been to, I think, 28 of them now. And this one's called Who's Buried in Grant's Tomb by Brian Lamb. And this is his personal tour of all the different presidential grave sites, and it just tells you about each one. It tells you, so like William Howard Taft, it tells you he was the 27th president, where he was born and when and where he died, how old he was, how he died, what his last words were if they were known, where he's buried, and whether there's an admission fee, and a little bit about that. And it does that for each of the presidential graves, even the people who hadn't died yet at that point. So that one's pretty cool. Okay. M1 Abrams, I did do a video on the defense of Moscow. I am from Northeast Ohio. I do know a little bit about John Clem. He's actually buried in Arlington, right in front of Arlington House, Robert E. Lee's house. And Johnny Clem's buried right in front of that. All right, so let me share with you guys now some of my library on Audible, which is, because I travel a lot, I've really, as of late, I haven't been buying hard, like physical copies of books. I've been getting audio books so that I can listen to them while I'm traveling. So I'm going to turn my display capture back on so I can show these to you guys. I'm going to shrink myself so that you can see these. Maybe. I think I did the wrong thing here. Hold on a second, guys. There's the webcam. All right, I'm going to shrink myself out of your way. And then I'm going to show you guys some of my favorite books that I've done as of late. I'm going to move myself over there. There we go. All right, I won't be able to see the chat for a few minutes here, so... so let me show you guys this stuff. Okay. 80811B, thank you. Appreciate that. The 442nd Regiment Combat Team. No, I have not done any research on them. So here are some of my books that I've read recently. And like I said, I won't be able to see the chat for a few minutes. So if you have questions, hang on to those. And I'll get back to them shortly because I don't have the chat pulled up on the screen at the moment. So somebody asked me about historical fiction. I'm really into Jeff Shara, who's the son of the man who wrote the book... Killer Angels, the movie Gettysburg was based on. And he wrote Gods and Generals, which was made into a movie, things like that. He's got another series that I'm working on right now, which is a 3-part trilogy on the Western battles. And the first one is the one that I'm actually listening to right now, is Blaze of Glory. It's a novel of the Battle of Shiloh, but it talks about more than just Shiloh. But it's historic fiction. It's like a novel about history. Windows dark mode. How do I do that? I thought I had it on dark mode. I don't even know how to do that. That's one of those things that I've never really taken the time to learn how to do. Somebody can probably tell me how to do that. But this is a book I read about Chickamauga before I visited the Chickamauga battlefield a month ago. This one was cool. This one's a really short book, actually. It wasn't very long, like maybe a couple hours audiobook. But this one's 47 Days, How Pershing's Warriors Came of Age to Defeat the German Army in World War I. So it's about the American involvement in World War I early in the war, or late in the war, I should say. This was a book that I did before I visited Fredericksburg earlier this year, which was really good as well. This one's very good if you want a book on Patton. This is Patton, the Man Behind the Legend by Martin Blumenson. In my Windows search bar. Okay. Turn on dark mode. System wide. Okay, let's see if we can do that. Well, that doesn't change anything on that screen. But it did at least change other stuff, I guess. So this is James Longstreet's autobiography. And this one, I didn't get through. I'm going to have to read this one. I had a hard time with the narrator for that audiobook. Sometimes audiobooks, the narrators aren't the best. And he was hard for me. Like, he didn't enunciate very well, so I had a hard time understanding it. This was an excellent book about the Vicksburg campaign that I did. The Memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant, I highly recommend. One of my all-time favorite autobiographies that I've ever done. Grant's got a really down-to-earth, very easy to follow style, and you get a really strong glimpse of the man's character through how he writes about the people that he served with and against. So that was really good. So here's Harry Turtledove, How Few Remain, a novel of the Second War Between the States. I haven't finished that one yet, but that was one that I got. Highly recommend Grant by Ron Chernow, one of the best biographies that I've ever done. And Chernow's biography of Hamilton is excellent as well. I want to get into his biography of Washington at some point. Dick Winter's autobiography, his memoirs. If you've read Band of Brothers or seen it and you want to hear Winter's personal perspective, my wife, who doesn't even care about history all that much and cares about history books even less, was listening to this one in the car with me, and she really enjoyed it, and now she wants to finish it with me. So that tells you a little bit about how good it is to follow that one. Donald Rumbelow is kind of the definitive author about all things Jack the Ripper. And so this was really good, The Complete Jack the Ripper, if you're into true crime or serial killers and things like that. And Jack the Ripper is something I've done a lot of studying on. Did a research paper on Jack the Ripper at some point. What's my opinion of Osprey? Osprey is they're good if you want information but not like minute detail. If you want a good overview of something, Osprey is a good one for that. So The Glorious Cause, here's another historic fiction series by Jeff Shara, and this is his series on the American Revolution that's really good. Here's a good history book on the Revolution that's only on Audible, Almost a Miracle, The American Victory and War of Independence. Really, really good if you want a good book about the American Revolutionary War. Alexander Hamilton by Chernow's phenomenal. That's the book that the musical is based on. When Lin-Manuel Miranda read Alexander Hamilton, that was what inspired him to write the musical. First Day at Gettysburg, Crisis at the Crossroads is good, and it's not real long, but it's still a good overview of the first day of Gettysburg. So here's a good one, Edward III, The Perfect King. Edward III is one of my favorite British monarchs. and it's a great book about his story at a crucial time in English history. Even though it says 5 hours left, I've actually read that. I think that was my second time through. I still have 5 hours left. A1 Mighty Laser, thank you. Yeah, I'll get to some Eastery videos sometime soon. This is another one in Jeff Shera's series about the Western Theater. My all-time favorite World War I book that I've done. And again, it says 24 hours left. That's my second time through it that I started on. It's really long and really exhaustive. And if you enjoy audiobooks, the narrator, Robin Sachs, is excellent. He's got a British accent. His narration style fits perfectly to the First World War. Whenever people ask me to recommend a book for World War I, that's the book I tell them. And if you watch Indy Neidel's Great War series on YouTube, pretty much every video in that series, he refers to the book A World Undone in that series. It's really, really good. I highly recommend it. Washington Spies. If you are a fan of the TV show Turn, Washington Spies from AMC, this is the history behind that series about the Culper Ring. It's really, really good by Alexander Rose. I highly recommend that one. One of my favorites. I cannot see the chat right now, so if you throw anything in the chat, just understand I can't see it until I turn this off. John Adams, this is the series that the HBO series is based on, or it's the book, I should say, by David McCulloch. Really, really good. Highly recommend that one as well. And then D-Day by Stephen Ambrose is probably my favorite World War II book that is not Band of Brothers. Really, really good. And again, goes into a ton of detail about not only D-Day itself, but Operation Overlord as a whole and all of the planning and preparation that go into that. And that's one that I think I'm going to probably listen to again before I go to Normandy next year. I'm going to be probably going in April or May with my friend JD from History Underground. He's putting together a tour, and I'm planning on being a part of that. So as soon as I know the details of that, I'll pass that on to you guys. So those are some of my favorite audiobooks that I've done as of late. All right, let me turn that off. And then I got to fix this. There we go. And then drag myself back over to you guys. And then I'll get back to your questions and the chat and all that fun stuff. There we go. Okay. So let me kind of reset and refresh a little bit here. I do not have any books on the Crimean War. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, but maybe you're just joining us, I'm going to put my recommendations into an Amazon list that you guys will have access to, and I'll post that, and I'll actually start posting that in the links of all my videos for you guys. I have not read Seven Pillars of Wisdom. I saw something that somebody said about from being from Central Ohio. Let me go back to that. Where was that? Gunpowder Mills. Been watching since 5K subs. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I hope you get that chance too. Yes, guys, whenever possible, I'm going to try to organize trips that we can do together. And I might even try to organize when I travel to places, just like a sit down, just for us to be able to go to dinner together. Because one of the things that was cool, like when I went to Chickamauga and Andersonville and got to visit with some fans of the channel and some longtime supporters of the channel, it was cool visiting the battlefields, but it was also just really cool just to chat and talk and, just share our love of history and sit down without the confines of YouTube to do that. So I'd like to do that more. I definitely want to do that more. So I'm going to try to organize those whenever I can. If you do use Discord, please join us on Discord. I have a channel on Discord where when I do visits to historic sites, I will post the details of those, and I try to let you guys know those in advance so that if you live in the area or you're inclined to visit, you can join me for those battlefield tours. I want to do more of that. Now, I've got a trip coming up in a couple of weeks to New England. We're going to Massachusetts and Maine. And like I mentioned, one of the places we're going is to the Joshua Chamberlain House But that is not one that I'm going to be posting the details of because that's a family trip. It's actually our first family vacation in 5 years because we just haven't financially been able to do that earlier. And thanks in part to you guys and your support of this channel, we're actually able to have our first family vacation in 5 years. So thank you for that. We were hoping it would be to the UK, but travel is not possible right now to the UK. But that's not one I'm opening up to people because that's a family trip, but we are going to be making some videos. Davis Van Dyke, favorite Balkan country. I don't want to share a favorite Balkan country because we have a lot of viewers from the Balkans and I don't want to alienate any of them. So I love all the Balkans. And I hope I get the chance to visit them someday. I have not read Sharpe's series, but I've watched the TV show and love it. Extra credit series on the Byzantine Empire. Yeah. I want to start getting into some more ancient history. So yeah, that's something we'll do, ancient or even like Roman period and later. My favorite book of all time, probably Band of Brothers. ERPT, Buckeye fans, very cool. I actually just did, Dorian, a whole big list of my recommendations on Civil War books. So if I could get any historical object or artifact, what would it be? That one's easy for me. There are two of them. Number one, my 9th great-grandfather. My direct male line. My father's last name is Snowden, so my last name should technically be Snowden, but my last name is actually my mother's maiden name because my parents were never married. Long story. But anyway, my 9th great-grandfather, my father's 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 father on the direct male line, was one of the signatories on Continental Currency. He signed, like, if you find Continental Currency, some of it has his signature on it. So let me see if I can find one real quick. I want to get my hands on one of those. And my friend Daryl Scott, who is actually kind of my boss with Rachel's Challenge, the father of Columbine victim Rachel Scott, he told me he collects memorabilia from the Revolutionary War. And he told me if he ever spots one, he'll get it for me. But here we go. So here's an example of that. Let me move this block out of the way here and let you guys see. So here's an example of one right here. So there is the signature. There's Snowden's signature right there. That's my direct 9th great-grandfather, ancestor, on my direct mail line. That's his signature on Continental Currency right there. So that's what I want to get my hands on, is one of those. Other than that, if I ever make a ton of money from YouTube, I really would like to get my hands on a 1855 Harper's Ferry musket, rifled musket, because that was what my 4th great-grandfather carried with the 20th Ohio. But they're like $5,000 is the cheapest I could find one. So let's see. Videos about Turkish history. That would be interesting at some point. I have seen some of the Rise of Empire. I haven't watched the Ottoman one yet on Netflix, but I want to check that out. I need to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. When you get interested in history, it's easy to get focused on things that you find interesting and get stuck there. So for me, Civil War, World War II, World War I, British medieval history, American history in general, being an American. So therefore, I don't know nearly as much about Middle Eastern history, Asian history, African history, South American history as I'd like to. So I need to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and do more of that. Plans for trips during 2021. Number one, definitely Western Europe. Like I mentioned, JD from History Underground, subscribe to him if you haven't already, is planning a trip to Normandy, and I'm planning on being a part of that trip. And while I'm there, I'm going to stay and visit the Netherlands, Western Germany, things like that. Our family's going to do a trip to the UK as soon as possible if they open up travel, maybe as early as this fall, if possible. Beyond that, I definitely want to go to Vicksburg in the United States. I'm going to go to Gettysburg again, probably before the end of the summer this year. Beyond that, I don't know yet. I guess we'll see how the channel does. If Social Blade is the least bit accurate and it projects that I'll have 1 million subs by summer 2021. If that's true and that happens, I'll definitely be taking some really good trips. And I'll take you guys along for the journey wherever I can. So, all right, let me get a drink real quick. I haven't had lunch yet, so I don't know how long the stream's going to go because I'm kind of hungry. I haven't read any books on Horatio Nelson or Trafalgar, but I need to do that. Definitely. Will I visit Hertgenwald? Huge fight there in World War II. I don't know, but when I do go to Europe, one of the things I definitely plan to do is I want to visit some of the German war cemeteries, because I'd love to get that perspective a little bit. And I know there are some of those that seem to be pretty well maintained in places like France, and I definitely want to do that. So, have I read Between Two Fires, American Indians in the Civil War, or any other books on Native Americans in the Civil War? No, I have not. Who's my favorite founding father? Alexander Hamilton, without a doubt. Crossover with Mr. Terry. Yeah, you know, Mr. Terry and I follow each other's channels, and we occasionally invade one another's streams. And actually, he did that way back before I even had this channel. He got a bunch of his followers to invade one of my gaming streams when I was playing Hearts of Iron 4 one day. Like, suddenly 100 people showed up from Mr. Terry's channel. If we could ever find a good idea for something to do, we will definitely do that. And that reminds me too, I'm gonna be a guest on a podcast coming up soon, and we're working on the details of that. Let me know. Let me look that up real quick and let you know what that podcast is. We're talking about 1 or 2 episodes of the podcast, and they're going to kind of interview me and stuff. It's called the What's Up Fandom podcast. Josh Kane is the guy who reached out to me about that. We're trying to coordinate on schedules and dates to do that. We're going to talk about my channel, talk about history and things like that. Brett, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Favorite historical movie that's riddled with historical inaccuracies, but you still enjoy it? Braveheart. Love Braveheart, but man, it's brutally inaccurate. But it did cause me to look into the real story of William Wallace, which is a plus. So yeah, I would say Braveheart. Team Hamilton, economics for the win. Chernow's biography of Hamilton was so good. And the fact that they haven't made a major motion picture about Hamilton is a crime. Same with Grant, for that matter. Yes, a lot of Native Americans did serve in both Northern armies. There was a Native American general, Stand Watie, in the Confederate Army, and one of Grant's high-ranking staff members, who was present at Appomattox, was a Native American as well, Eli Parker. Wildly off topic, have I thought of doing a video on the Japanese Unit 731? But people have recommended that to me before. Favorite book about the history of Christianism? I don't know if I have one. Apocalypto, I watched it, couldn't really get into it myself, but I know a lot of people do like it. What historical figure do I wish had more attention? I would have said Hamilton, but now with the musical, I think he's kind of gotten that. Napoleon. In Europe he probably gets a lot of attention, but here in America, by and large, I don't think people know a lot about Napoleon, and I think people should know more about him. What's my very Sabaton music? I'm not sure what you mean by what's my very Sabaton. I could tell you what my favorite Sabaton song is. 82nd All the Way. I haven't read any Irish history books. I have watched Schindler's List. Who's my favorite Hamilton character? Burr. I don't like Aaron Burr, the historic, like the real Aaron Burr. I don't like him at all. I think he was a really lousy human being. But as a character in Hamilton, I like him a lot in the musical. I am excited about the Theodore Roosevelt movie. I hope that Leonardo DiCaprio... I'm not a huge fan of Leonardo DiCaprio, the actor. I know that's not probably a popular opinion, but I hope he does well. I know he loves history because he was like a producer of the Grant miniseries that they did on the History Channel. So I know he loves history. Has YouTube become my full-time job? I'm happy to report yes. That does not mean it's my only job. I still am a pastor on Sunday mornings. I preach at church on Sunday mornings. Not so much because I need the money, but because I love it, and I'm serving the church, and I want to continue to do that. And I am going to continue to do my work with Rachel's Challenge, though not full time. I'll do occasional events in the fall. But yeah, thankfully, because of you guys, because of the support on this channel and the gaming channel, both through ad revenue, which I only get ad revenue for some videos on this channel, because a lot of them are monetized for the original content creator with the reaction videos. Not all of them, but a lot of them, especially the oversimplified ones, which are where the majority of my views come from. But because of your donations, because of your support on Patreon, yes, I am at the place. Now, I can't travel as much as I would like, but another 6 months of growth on this channel, if it continues the way it has, I'll be able to start doing a lot more travel for the channel, and I'm excited about that opportunity. And that's possible because of this phenomenal community that we have. I love you guys. I am grateful for you guys, and I absolutely love being able to have these chats with you. And I want to mention, and I apologize I'm not getting to questions at the moment, but I'll get back to those. Understand, and please, I hope you guys understand this. I started this channel last year, and in December we had 500 subscribers. In 4.5 years of my gaming channel, I've got 44,000 subscribers on that. And most of that growth has happened in the last 2 years. So this channel, a lot of you have been around from when I had a few hundred or a few thousand subscribers. We get typically 1,000 to 2,000 new subscribers a day on the channel. As the channel grows, the reality is it gets harder and harder for me to interact with you guys the way I'd like to. I get dozens of emails every day. It's hard for me to have time to respond to all of them, and I feel terrible about that because I hate that that is true. While I simultaneously love the growth that our channel has had, because that means it's appealing to people, and that's what you want, right? I want this to be something that appeals to people. And every day I get comments and messages from people that say, hey, I've rediscovered my love for history because of you. And that is my goal, is that we have this shared love of history. But it does mean as we grow, and as we're now over 150,000 subscribers, that it makes it harder and harder for us to have the one-on-one and the individual contact that we otherwise would have. And these streams even, you know, this is a smaller stream. We've only got 275 right now. We've had streams with as many as 2,000 people in them. It makes it harder for me to interact. And it means that a lot of you guys, you post questions that I don't even get to answer. And I hate that that's true, but it's kind of where we're at. So please be patient with me as I adjust to the growth of the channel, because it does mean that I occasionally have to rethink how I do some things. But I want you to always know that I value this community, and I value every one of you as part of this community. We have people from all over the world. I wish, and maybe I can show you. Let me see if I can pull up and just show you kind of the analytics of where we get views from on the channel. It's crazy to see where all we get views from on the channel. It's really cool. So I'm going to pull that up, and then I'll show it to you guys here in just a second if I can. I'm trying to find where the map is. Where's it at? Top geographies. Here we go. Hold on. And I'm going to get back to the chat here in just a second as soon as I can. Oh, why won't it show me the map? Somewhere there's supposed to be a map where I can see it. Geography. So I'll just read some of it to you, okay? 46% of our views come from the United States, followed by the UK, Canada, Germany, Philippines, Australia, India, Sweden, Netherlands, Poland, Indonesia, Denmark, Norway, Romania, Brazil, France, Spain, Finland, Belgium, Malaysia, Singapore, Russia, Mexico, Italy, Czechia, Czech Republic, Ireland, Portugal, Greece, Australia, New Zealand, Turkey, Serbia, Hungary, Vietnam, Switzerland, Thailand, Lithuania, Argentina, Croatia, Israel, South Africa, Chile, Bulgaria, Hong Kong, Slovakia, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Latvia, and Ukraine. Those are all the countries in which there have been at least 10,000 views in the last month. That's crazy. That's awesome. That's so cool. So thank you to all of you guys for being a part of that. We have about 5,000 people on Discord, so that's a little bit better of a way for me to interact on a smaller scale. And that's one of the reasons why I want to do this travel and interact and give you guys a chance to meet with me face to face and be part of the tours, because it gives us a chance to have a little bit more one-on-one time together. So the map is in advanced options. Is that where it is? Okay. So anyway, so thank you. And let me get back to the chat. Have I read the Lenin Plot? No. Did I ever think about becoming a history teacher? Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I went to college, was to be a history teacher. My life kind of went a different direction, and I don't talk much about things that like religion and politics, specifically because I don't want to talk about things that might divide or separate. I'm a Christian. I make no secret of that. I'm a pastor. But it doesn't matter to me if you're an atheist, a Muslim, a Jew, a Buddhist, a Christian, a Zoroastrian, or anything else. I'm glad you're here. We're here because we have a common love for history. So I don't talk much about that. But I went to college to be a history teacher. Ended up going into ministry. Spent 14 years in full-time ministry. And I still do ministry, but on a part-time basis. And so that's the reason I never became a history teacher, is that I felt called to a different, life altogether. So that's kind of how it worked out. But this has given me that outlet for history and gotten me back to that love that I've had since I was a kid. So Charlie Wilson's War I have not read, but I've seen the movie. Wolf Tone I have not read. What history game do I recommend the most, excluding Hearts of Iron 4? Grand Tactician of the Civil War I've really enjoyed lately. What do I know about Chilean history? Very little, unfortunately. Not much at all. Robert Leckie's memoir, Helmet for My Pillow. I haven't read it, but I know that that's the one in part that the Pacific was based on. So that's one I definitely... I've never found myself into the Pacific War as much as the European War. That needs to change, but I really enjoyed the Dan Carlin's Supernova in the East, his podcast, which was really good. So that was cool. Lyndon Johnson by Robert Caro I have not read. Do I happen to know of any books that cover the Battle of Jutland in depth? No, and I didn't actually know that Dan Carlin had a series on World War I. I want to check that out because I like his stuff. It's good. Thoughts on the Nordic countries and their history. They have a lot of great history, and that's something I want to get into, like the 30 Years' War. I want to get into the Great Northern War, things like that. Excluding the USA, which country would I fight for in the Great War? The UK. Do I consider West Virginia to be in the South? Yes, I do. I consider Southern Ohio to be in the South. If you go south of Columbus, people have a Southern accent in Ohio. So culturally, the southern half of Ohio is Southern culturally. Hitchens' biography of Jefferson, I have not read that. All right, so I'm actually starting to get a little lightheaded from my need to eat. So I'm going to wrap this stream up right here. I mainly wanted this stream to be about announcing the winner of the logo contest, but also talking about those books, and I've done that. We're going to try to do more streams more often to do these interactive things. So thank you guys for joining. Check out the new merch in the link in the description with the new logo. As soon as we get off of here and I get some lunch, I'm going to actually update the channel with the new logo and stuff. I have not been to all 50 states. I've been to 47. Rhode Island, Louisiana, and Utah are the 3 I haven't been to. So you guys take care. God bless. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again soon.